Hello friend and welcome to a brand new video. It is your most creative weird makeup artist pal Cat Sketch, here to bring you guys another makeup transformation and a spooky one at that. Have you heard about M3GAN? This creepy doll movie. It's like a AI robot girl in this doll form. The trailers to this look amazing. I thought I would turn into M3GAN today. If you have not seen the trailer, I really want to see the movie. It looks so spooky and good. With the uprise of AI all over the internet, this movie sends chills to my spine. So today I thought we would turn into M3GAN while talking about some scary stories. Warning, before we start this video, we talk about child loss, death, ending one's life, and very many hard subjects. We are getting into some very scary, spooky real life stories. So warning you now if you want to skip this video and go to another one. Okay, let's get started. So I scoured the internet and Reddit for some spooky tales. This first one is from Big Soul 81. I was playing around with a radio once when I was a kid, just slowly spanning through the static trying to find a station. I found an old television antenna, attached it to the side of our house, and ran a wire out my window to it with an alligator clip attached to the radio antenna, allowing me to get a way broader range of signals. So I'm sitting there early in the morning, it's like 2 a.m., slowly sweeping frequencies, and suddenly I get to this station that's playing this very weird crackling sound. It sounded sort of like crackling knuckles, or maybe like Rice Krispies cereal when the milk is being poured in to a bowl of it, but with a fixed rhythmic pattern instead of being random. I sat there listening to it for a second, and it suddenly stopped, and this faint voice says, "It doesn't work. We're already dead. We're already dead." It took a second for the weight of the words to hit me. But when they did, I freaked the f*** out, and I almost threw the radio across the room. I'm pretty sure it was just someone messing around with the radio transmitter. But damn it, if it didn't scare the shit out of me at the time. This story was actually deleted by the original author, but it still lies within the realms, online, all over Reddit. My parents bought their first house back in 1972. It was a fixer-upper, but they decided to move in right away and fix things as time and money were permitted. Within a few days of moving in, the new neighbors came over to introduce themselves. They also let my parents know that the previous owners had moved out after a nasty divorce. They had lost their second baby from SIDS, and their relationship went downhill from there. My parents were horrified, more so because they were newly pregnant and couldn't imagine going through such a thing. They eventually pretty much forgot about it all. Life went on. They were in love with their new life and their new house. In preparation for their baby, they decided to wallpaper the nursery. Now, my dad told my mom there was no need in wallpapering the inside of the closet, but she insisted. She was kneeling down, scraping off old paint inside the closet, when her eyes fell upon something that made her blood turn to ice. Written in crayon, about eye level, for a kindergartner-age child, in childish scrawls, was the words, "I killed the baby." This story is from the author named Sweet Dish. A few years back, I rented an apartment from a friend of mine. He had recently bought it and had it completely renovated. He put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer, so I offered to rent it in the meantime. After moving in, I realized there was something wrong with the lady next door. She was about 45 years old, but looked much older. She would sit up all night listening to Christian radio shows and talking loudly to someone. It got to the point where I couldn't sleep, so I went over to her place and asked her if she could keep it down. She opened her door, and I got a quick peek inside. Her walls all had crosses painted on them in different colors, and words like Jesus and angels scribbled everywhere. The windows were painted black, letting no light in at all. It was damp, yellow stained, 50-year-old carpets, dog poop and roaches everywhere, but no dog. I asked her to please keep it down. She just looked at me and shut the door. Then she turned up the radio even louder. The next night, I had my girlfriend staying over. I wake up in the middle of the night and see a shadow of a person next to the bed looking at us sleeping. I think I'm hallucinating, as I usually do in the dark when I'm sleepy. But then the shadow starts talking. It's my neighbor. She's holding something in her hand. She broke in during the night, and who knows how long she's been standing there. You should lock your doors at night, she says, and walks out. The next morning, I hear someone making strange noises below my bedroom window. It's my neighbor talking to herself in tongue. She has a plastic bag in her hand with her rotting dead dog inside. It's hot as hell outside, and I could smell the death from the bag. At this point, I'm scared. She's obviously very insane. I go upstairs and knock on another person's door and ask what the hell is going on. The guy is as scared as I am. Apparently, she broke into his apartment as well one evening while he was watching television with his kids. He got up from the couch to get a snack only to find her behind the couch staring at him, holding a power drill. Now I know what was in her hand. At this stage, I'm basically pooping myself. I call the cops and they know all about her. Apparently, she is a violent schizophrenic and she hasn't taken her medicine. But they can't force her or enter her apartment without her permission because she owns it. The only thing they can do is get her when she goes outside. I sit up for the next 2 days waiting for her to run out of cigarettes. When I hear her leave at 2 a.m. to go across the road to the 7-Eleven, I call the cops. They have 3 cars and a special van over in less than 2 minutes. They restrain her and throw her in the van and drive off to some institution. And in less than a minute, it's like she was never there. I've never seen her again. I still have nightmares about her looking at me in my sleep. This next story is from an author named Crackhead Sally. When I was 7 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night with an earache. I decided to tell my mom and stepdad and walked out of my room. Someone was sitting in the chair in the living room, about 3 feet away from my bedroom door. The person looked strange. The face was just kind of distorted, but it was dark and I couldn't see well. "Mom?" I asked. The person shook their head, and I started getting scared. "Mike?" The person shook their head again. I decided the best course of option was to go back to bed, so I wouldn't have to walk past this person. I climbed into bed and closed my eyes for a second, before opening them and seeing the person standing in my doorway, smiling madly and nodding furiously. I screamed at the top of my lungs and closed my eyes. My stepdad came running into the room in his underwear with a baseball bat. This itself was a scary sight. There was nothing there though, but clothes that my mom had folded and put on the chair were strewn about the living room. For the longest time, I told myself it was my cat, just sitting on the clothes, and not a person at all. The original author to this story is deleted, but it still lies within Reddit. I posted this before a long time ago, but it still remains by far the single creepiest thing that has ever happened to me. So here it goes. I was in Taiwan one year when I was younger, and had traveled to a busy night market. These are very popular gatherings of foods and shop stalls that usually operate in the evening. Nearby, I spotted a sign for a net cafe in a 5 to 6 story tall building. Think I'd fire off some quick emails. I walked in the dark, small entrance of this building. The building was older and hasn't been well maintained, but it's not out of the ordinary in Taiwan. The entrance just had a dark hallway that led to a small elevator. I pressed the elevator call button and entered. The elevator was uncharacteristically new compared to the building. but I didn't think much of it. Like some Chinese and Taiwanese buildings, there wasn't a fourth floor. It's considered bad luck, since 4 sounds like death. So it just reads 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, which was usual. I looked for the floor the Net Cafe was on. It was at the 6th floor, and I pressed that button. It lurched into action quietly and began to ascend. When it stopped, I figured it was my floor, so I instinctively began to step out. Right before stepping out, however, the sight outside the elevator stopped me. It was pitch dark, only lit by the light in the elevator, so it looked like it hasn't been occupied for decades, with some random pieces of furniture covered with white cloth. It was a small building, so each floor was a single occupancy, so I could see pretty much the entire floor from the elevator. Thinking I must have gotten the wrong floor, I checked the light that indicates which floor that I'm on. Strangely, there was nothing there. None of the indicators were on, but the floor button to the Net Cafe was still lit. So I know I haven't gotten there yet. All this happened within a couple seconds. That's when I noticed a figure moving in the distance of that floor. It wasn't very visible, but I can make out what looks like a person, dressed in some sort of gown, moving slowly towards the elevator where I was. I was thoroughly creeped out, so I started pressing the closed door button. As soon as I pressed it, the elevator light flickered off, and I am in the pitch dark. I am this close to pissing my pants, and it's actually kind of freaking me out thinking back to it. The lights flickered back on under a second and the door closed. The elevator jolted back to life. A few moments later, it opened again to the Net Cafe. I am beyond relieved at this point. I walked out immediately and sat down at a computer. After gathering my wits a bit, I walked over to the cashier's desk and told them what I saw. The girl working there listened and her face turned a bit ashen. So I asked her if she had heard of similar stories. She told me that she's never experienced it, but some coworkers and occasional customers have brought it up. Basically, the building has 6 floors, and the 4th floor had a history. Apparently, the floor used to be a hair salon of sorts, until one of the employees killed herself on that floor for some reason. She slit her wrists over the hair wash station and died. The store continued operations despite stories of weird appearances. When customers got their hair rinsed, the water would look a little red, like the customer was bleeding. Little things like that, and a couple reported seeing someone's figure walking away in the mirror, but wouldn't see anyone when they turned their head to check. Naturally, the business closed down a few months later. The building owner tried to re-rent this place out, but never had any luck. Most businesses are quite superstitious, and no one wanted to rent the 4th floor after someone had died in it, even at a very cheap price. Finally, after dropping the price to nearly nothing, a stationery supply stores wanted to rent it. During the renovations of the floor, however, several accidents would happen. Tools would end up in strange places. A mirror from the previous business shattered when no one was near it. And finally, a worker had his hands jammed between the elevator doors and it closed on him unexpectedly. The workers refused to continue working there, and finally, the business left, and the building owner finally gave up and shut down that floor. He then had the elevator company come in to replace the panels so the elevator could not go to the 4th floor. Let me repeat that. The elevator was programmed to never go on the 4th floor. It doesn't even have a button. But for some reason, sometimes, when people take the elevator, it would go to the 4th floor, and the doors would open, and some, like myself, would see a figure walking around in the dark. This next story is by a user named Harawan. I just told my girlfriend about some of the stories in this thread after telling her of the weird man waltzing story. She said casually, "Well, yeah, that's like what happened to me." I've been compelled to post her story. I used to be sure all ghost stories were made up, but she's told me of so many weird things that have happened to her that I don't always know what I think anymore. She grew up in a small Romanian town on the Danube. Of those who don't know, this is a wide river that flows from German mountains out to the Black Sea. She's told me some sad stories of the past where people had tried to swim across the river after World War II to escape the country, but either drowned from the current or were caught by the police and shot. In fact, there have been a lot of troubles resulting in death of innocent people in this region post-World War II, making this story freak me out a little bit more. She had finished walking her date back to the army barracks at the edge of town and was heading back to her father's apartment. She followed the path home along the river and was in a very calm mood. She described it as a mood in which nothing would faze her. As she walked back, she looked into the window of the post office, which had closed for a while as it was 3 a.m. In the window was 20 faces, noses pressed against the window, staring out at her. She carried on walking unfazed. At this point, obliviously, I was thinking, yeah, well, that's not odd. There are probably people in there. She carried on walking further and she glanced to her left at the river to see a bunch of people swimming towards the shore. She turned her head toward and kept walking some more. She looked toward the river again, expecting for the people to be gone, but there they were still. How many people, she shrugged? 100? All swimming towards the bank at 3 a.m. She felt like stopping, but was compelled to not break the stride. She kept on walking. As she got to the park, she could see figures running and dancing in there. She didn't walk, though. It's to the side of the path. She said they were wearing an odd assortment of clothes. Some old-fashioned, some white and semi-translucent. They seemed like young people. Their dancing wasn't modern. It was waltz-like. She carried on. As she neared the farther apartment, she could see a figure moving in the distance, growing larger as she neared it. She remained neutral. She wouldn't have had to pass him, as her turn off would be before him. She was nearer and she could make him out more clearly. He was wearing an old-fashioned suit and was waltzing by himself. He wasn't going anywhere, and his waltz took him around in circles. He was simply just dancing by himself. She got home and her father said, "What happened?" as he could see an odd look on her face, and she didn't really know where to start. After our conversation, she said 2 things of note. The first was she had kept calm as she kept thinking, "It's good, there's nothing to worry about. There's something else. There's another side." The second, maybe it's some kind of phenomenon then, that waltzing. All I can say is I was unnerved. She's gone out now, but she'll be back in a few hours, so I'll pass on any comments and questions to her. And those are today's scary stories while we turn into M3GAN. This is such a spooky character. Like I said, I cannot wait to see this movie. It looks so good. I hope you enjoyed me turning into M3GAN while telling these bone-chilling stories. This was so much fun to do. Please leave a comment down below on what other video ideas you would love to see. If I choose your comment, I will definitely shout you out. We post every Friday here. I also post over on my TikTok, so you can follow me there. Thank you all so much for supporting this channel. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you in the next video. Love y'all. Bye.